you check the value. And I saw today, this is just this morning, what is the price of Bitcoin in Pakistani rupees. You can see also, you can trade Bitcoins here. But I'm not too much for Bitcoin, but it is just an example of what will come, because the technology behind, which is called blockchain, will survive. Blockchain is something that has come to stay, and it will totally disrupt the financial industry. So the fintech ecosystem comprises many, many different things, including robo-advisors. We are going to have now artificial intelligence advising us what to do with our money. In fact, many financial companies in the USA are beginning to fire their financial advisors because computers do it better and they do it cheaper. And they don't complain. Okay, so we have many, many, many areas that are growing. Let me show you also another way to view at this landscape. And not just in fintech, but also in what is called now insurance technology, insurtech. This is totally changing the world. Also, big sectors of the insurance industry will disappear in 10 years. When all the cars will be intelligent, self-driving cars, there will be no accidents. So all the car insurance industry will disappear in the next 10 to 15 years, just to give an example. Fast Company, which is a very famous, popular magazine in the USA, just made this ranking of the 10 top financial innovations of the year. And you can see even old companies like Goldman Sachs are innovating. And Goldman Sachs, just for example, is going into consumer lending. Number 4, Ethereum. Ethereum is a new type of Bitcoin blockchain combination. And it is an example of things that are going to be happening more and more and more. Even, again, number 9, traditional companies like Visa. Visa is now starting to have payments through wearables, through things that you wear on yourself, like a watch, glasses. You can do payments with Visa, with wearables. Many of these technologies are also in developing nations. M-Pesa is my favorite in Africa. Pesa means money in Swahili, and M is for mobile, is mobile money. M-Pesa actually has been growing outside of Kenya. It is in basically many African countries, and it also started now in India and Afghanistan. So I would imagine that soon they would also be here in Pakistan. But the interesting thing about M-Pesa, mobile money, is that you do transfers and payments with your mobile telephone. And everybody today has a mobile telephone in the world. And this will radically affect the banking industry. In the case of Africa, Kenya, it didn't matter too much because there were no banks almost in Kenya. But now everybody has a bank account because everybody has a mobile phone. So this is radically changing the whole transaction system in Africa and different parts of the world. We talk about these ideas with Peter Diamandis, who is the main founder of Singularity University with Ray Kurzweil, and he wrote these 2 books, Abundance and Bold, How to Be Bold to Change the World. In the book Abundance, the first one, he talks about how we are moving from scarcity to abundance. And this might be sometimes difficult to believe, but I repeat, the world is improving very fast, and we are moving from scarcity in the Malthusian trap of the past into a world of abundance of every material, thanks to technology. And this will have radical disruptions. This is Peter Diamandis, just talking about the 6 Ds of exponential framework. Everything will become digitized, deceptive, disruptive, dematerialized, demonetized, and democratized. And for example, Uber. Uber is the largest taxi company in the world, and it doesn't own one taxi. And Airbnb is the largest hotel chain in the planet, and it does not own one room. So there is a complete disruption in every sector, by new companies, startups that come from outside the ecosystem. The disruption comes from outside, not from inside. Another famous case is that you probably know, Kodak. We talk a lot about Kodak. Kodak used to be the largest company in the world for photographs, billions and billions of dollars. And then there is Instagram, founded by a couple of people that was basically destroyed Kodak because we moved from chemical films into digital pictures. And it is a big radical disruption that, I repeat, did not come from the industry. The disruption comes from outside, and the people inside don't see it because they are not expecting it. All of the technologies go through different phases. We normally talk about this technology change in a hype, the hype curve, and you can see where different technologies are today and where these technologies will be in the next 2, 5, 10 years, and how these technologies will radically disrupt every single industry. In fact, basically there are 10 major trends, major technology trends. The first ones, merging the real world and the virtual world. This is also just beginning. We are going to be creating parallel worlds, virtual worlds, augmented reality, intelligence everywhere, and new IT that emerges from all of this. All of these ideas we teach at Singularity University, which is based on exponential change. And as we saw from the story about the chessboard, you know, things are doubling. They are not just increasing little by little, they are doubling. This is the idea behind exponential technologies. And one of the conclusions is that this will happen at the latest in 2045, that we will reach the technological singularity. And if you look at the subtitle of this article in Time magazine, you see by 2045, at the latest, man will become immortal. And also, ladies here, do not worry. Ladies also will become immortal thanks to the technological advances that we are seeing. We saw these really radical changes in every area, including in biotechnology. This is my human genome. With a little device like this, which is called a gene chip, a chip for the genes, you will sequence your genome, all of you, I can guarantee you, in 5 to 10 years. All of you will sequence your genome, and you will know what you will die of. You will know the probability that you have to die of cancer, or have Alzheimer's, or have Parkinson's. Isn't that interesting? But the idea is that you will not die of that, because if you know it, you will prevent it. The medicine of the future will not be curative. The medicine of the future will be preventive. And you will know which diseases you are going to have according to your genes. Also, you will know where your ancestors come from. This is my paternal line in the last few centuries. And you can see on my father's side, they come from Spain all the way to Mongolia, to Asia. And I am related to famous people like Genghis Khan. So no one wants to fight here with me. Now I will show you my maternal line. And you can see on my mother's side, I come from Maria Antoinette. I have a very aristocratic family between Genghis Khan and Marie Antoinette. All of you will know this after you sequence your genome. You will know where you come from, which diseases you might have, and you will be able to reconstruct your genealogical tree. And for the first time, you will be able to verify if your father is really your father. But more interesting than looking into the past is looking into the future. And we are going to design our children. This is an experiment I did with one of my students, sharing genes. We shared genes. This is a theoretical experiment to know which genes you would like for your children. Let me tell you, you are part of the last human generation that has not been designed. All of you are here by mistake. In the future, we will design the characteristics we want for our children. And this is not expensive. When it began, it was very expensive. The Human Genome Project began in 1990. It took 13 years, and it cost over $1 billion to sequence the first human genome. 13 years, $1 billion. Today, in 2017, you can sequence your whole complete genome for about $900 in 3 days. We expect that by 2025, you will be able to sequence your complete genome for $10 in 1 minute. Look at that. That is incredibly exponential. But it is hard for us to understand exponential change because we think linearly. Our minds are linear, but technology is changing exponentially, faster, smaller, better, and cheaper. An example between linear versus exponential again, if I give 30 steps, each step of 1 meter, after 30 steps, I have walked 30 meters. But if I walk exponentially and I double, after 30 doublings, I have gone around planet Earth 26 times. And I have walked more than 1 billion meters. We don't understand this because our brains think linearly, but the technology changes exponentially. 10 years ago, I went to Colombo, Sri Lanka, to visit Sir Arthur C. Clarke, where he was based in Sri Lanka. He's very famous for science fiction, like A Space Odyssey 2001, but also he wrote the 3 laws of the future. And he said, first law of the future, when a famous scientist says that something is possible, he's probably right. But when he says it is impossible, he's probably wrong. Second law, the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture past those limits into the impossible. And third law of the future, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. We are going to see magic in the next few years. 30 years ago, there were no personal computers. When I was at MIT, I typed my first thesis, my bachelor's thesis, with a primitive technology called typewriter. Have you seen typewriters? Those existed. 20 years ago, mobile phones were growing throughout the planet. 10 years ago, companies like Google, Facebook were growing. What will happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years? We are going to see magic. One of those is the control of aging. Some of my friends are working on aging, and they say that aging is a disease, but it is a curable disease that we are going to cure in the next few years. In fact, they created a foundation called the Methuselah Foundation to talk about all this, the rejuvenation and longevity of mice. They are doing experiments with mice, and in the last 10 years, they have been able to extend the life of mice 3 times. Today, we have mice that live the equivalent of 300 human years. And this has been done in the last 10 years. Imagine what will be done in the next 10 years. In fact, Google has created another company, a subsidiary called Calico. Calico means California Life Company. California Life Company. And the objective of Calico is to solve a little problem called death. They plan to cure aging in the next 20 to 30 years. And the same was announced last year by Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, who is a medical doctor, Priscilla Chan, that in the next 10 to 20 years, they will be curing all diseases, including aging. And Microsoft announced that they will cure cancer also, treating it as a computer virus. So we live in incredible times thanks to all these technologies that are converging. They are converging into what we call the technological singularity. The four major technologies are nanotechnology, biotechnology, infotechnology, and cognotechnology. All these four technologies are converging into the technological singularity, where we will create artificial intelligence that will complement and augment, increase our intelligence. And this is in the real world, but there is the parallel virtual worlds. And this is the example of Microsoft HoloLens, which lets you share invented reality. You can create your own reality and share it with others. This is just the beginning of things we are going to see, thanks to all these technologies. Nanotechnology, doing things smaller and smaller, atom by atom. This is a little engine made at perfection with only the atoms that you need, and you put them where you want them. Thanks to nanotechnology, our cities in the future will be incredibly clean and incredibly advanced. In 20 years, thanks to nanotechnology, there will be no garbage. There will be no garbage in the future. There will only be raw materials in the wrong place. Raw materials in the wrong place. Second technology is biotechnology that will allow us to repair our bodies. One of those examples is cloning. We will be able to clone, but not for reproduction. For reproduction is better. We will use cloning for medical reasons, for therapeutic reasons. You can clone your heart, your lung, probably in 10 years. Many countries are working on medical cloning, like Singapore. They created a center called Biopolis, the city of life, where they are experimenting with cloning. And also Russia. But you have to be a little careful about the Russians. You never know what the Russians are thinking. Third technology, infotechnology. The way computers are advancing in the next 20 years, we will reach the intelligence of a human brain, and everything will be connected to everything. This is called the Internet of Things. Everything will be connected to everything. And these are the self-driving cars, which are very intelligent. They drive themselves, and they don't kill people. We humans kill about 1 million people every year driving. But fortunately, we will not drive anymore. In 10 years, all the new cars will be self-driving cars, all of them. You are part of the last human generation that drives. So enjoy it while it lasts. And even BMW announced by 2025 their cars will be completely autonomous and electric. And everything will be connected to everything, as the chairman of Google said, that by 2020 at the latest, we will have planetary internet. The whole planet will be connected to free internet. This is important. Free, with no password. Free. Imagine, that will change humanity completely. And artificial intelligence is evolving. We talked about chess. Well, there is no human today who can win chess against a computer program. Since 20 years ago, when Garry Kasparov was the last human who could win. And we have other technologies that are also changing the world, like IBM created also Watson. Watson is an artificial intelligence that knows all of Wikipedia. How many of you know Wikipedia? How many? No, but how many of you have read all of Wikipedia and remember all of Wikipedia? No one, right? But Watson does. Watson was born with Wikipedia, and it knows it all, and it remembers it all. Watson now is doing this for 3 professions. The first one is for doctors. And he created IBM Watson, Dr. Watson. Now, and that doctor will soon Soon, it's in 2 to 3 years, will be better than any human doctor. And now they are beginning to work on IBM lawyer and IBM accountant. So get ready for the IBM accountant is coming. But we now have a third type of artificial intelligence, which is more interesting. It's an artificial intelligence that learns by itself. Google developed AlphaGo to play the game of Go, that is the most complex game. But the important thing is that this artificial intelligence learns by itself. This is a new type of artificial intelligence because Watson was programmed. AlphaGo learns like we humans. It learns by doing. So this is coming artificial intelligence, and we get to the final technology, the most interesting one, which is cognotechnology, because the brain is the most complex structure in the body, and the only one that still we have not been able to recreate artificially until now. But this is coming. We will have artificial brains. In fact, Google says that Google wants to be the third half of your brain. Think about that, the third half of your brain. And the idea is to create an exocortex, an external brain that will increase the capabilities of your knowledge, everything that you know multiplied many, many times over. But this is a full brain. However, there are smaller brains. Look, that's a small brain. And we will be able to connect our brains. Experiments are being done connecting the brains of mice, connecting the brains of monkeys, and connecting the brains of humans. Let me show you this. This is a very interesting device that came out about 5 years ago, and it's the beginning of telepathy. This reads what is happening in the frontal lobe of my brain and transfers it to a computer and soon to another brain. We will use telepathy in the next 10 to 20 years to communicate. Talking is very primitive. What we are doing here is very primitive. Talking is the narrow bandwidth. Talking is very slow and very narrow bandwidth. Imagine if I could communicate like computers in 1 second. All of this presentation in the future will take 1 second through telepathy. This is coming. We are going to have these devices with many, many more electrodes, and we will connect these to robots. These are the last 15 years of Asimo by Honda. Can you imagine the next 15 years of Asimo? Asimo, in 15 years, will be almost human. And Honda announced that they want to win the World Cup in 20 years. So if Pakistan doesn't rush, it will not win the World Cup before the robots. And the robots will have feelings. In Korea, they are working on a law to give human rights to robots in 10 years, because every Korean will have one robot in their home with human capabilities. This is being discussed in the Congress of Korea. I don't know what is being discussed in the Congress in Pakistan, but in Korea, they talk about human rights for robots. And robots will be fantastic. Look at those robots. And for the ladies, don't despair. You will have also your fantastic macho robots with one advantage. They will not get tired at night. Unfortunately, we think that robots are bad. And you know who that is? Yeah? Terminator, who after doing Terminator 4 was elected governor of California. He was governor of California 8 years. In fact, in California, we call him the Governator. And the Governator inaugurated Singularity University in 2009. And he said he was very happy to see a place where the future is being taught. Because the science fiction of today is the science reality of tomorrow. But we think robots are bad. All kind of robots are bad. In Japan, robots are good. Did you know that? In Japan, robots are good. That is why Japan is so advanced in human robotics, because they think robots are good. And they make all kinds of robots, and children grow up learning about robots. And companies like Toyota, Panasonic, many companies in Japan are making robots. But this is not robots versus humans. This is humans and machines combined. This is the first cyborg in the Olympic Games in 2012 in London. We will have more and more of these.